weapons law came in and has absolutely changed the perspectives on that. You might question in government, and I will now question to government in my writing to government on this particular issue, is if police dogs are no longer regarded as property in terms of theft or damage, they are regarded as police dogs and public servants essentially. And this is following my campaign to make sure retired police dogs are well looked after recently as well. We need to take this campaign. I think the strongest campaign can come from a push from residents to myself. But Dave, I think that's just as strong and can be made stronger with the support of you as the Police and Crime Panel for Cheshire. You know, we talked at the last meeting about a joint letter about ESN to the Home Office. We need to do that. We need a joint letter about this. I recognise the strength of the mandate, the statutory mandate of the Police and Crime Panel that can't take away from my view. It can only add to the strength of the view. So I will ask, I mean, further to your FOI, Dave, I would have really liked that question to come into my office. I will ask the constabulary whether that data is held separately. It may not be on government recording standards, but I will ask for some data on the theft of family members, pets, but family members in Cheshire in that regard. And I will ask for a really firm response to how those are being treated, what priority is being given to the response on those. Because Dave, many of our residents in Cheshire would equate that with the loss or a kidnap of a family member. You know, these pets, I believe, largely dogs. And let's be clear about this. I believe this work is being carried out by members of organised gangs, of serious organised crime. There needs to be a real crackdown nationally. We mentioned about modern slavery. Let's be absolutely clear. Modern slavery destroys lives. It completely destroys the lives of the victims. We know that this isn't just carried out by anybody. We know that this is carried out by serious organised crime groups, nationally and internationally, that don't care about the commodity. It's how much money they can make, whether it be guns, whether it be drugs, whether it be people, whether it be pets. This is big money, and it's money and resources that drives the demand for criminals to take part. We've got to crack this in a big way, and you can rely on me. I have a huge involvement nationally with the coordination of organised crime and modern slavery. I attend regularly a PCC and national bodies, national meeting on it. Absolutely assure you of my commitment. And on the pets issue, let's watch this space, but I'm grateful for the question. Let's make some noise about it, Dave, and let's get a clear kind of response out there and a clear focus. Thank you, David, and thank you, Evan.
Right, thank you, Commissioner. You happy with that, Dave? Yeah.
Yeah, Chair. We will speak separately. The idea of a panel and a commissioner signing up to joint letters about things is, I think, is a positive thing. If we share the same views, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Jan's been waiting a long time. I'm going to take Jan's question as the last question. Thank you, Commissioner. And then just to relieve everyone, because I'm sure I'm in the same boat, we'll have a 5-minute adjournment till we get back into the agenda. Okay. Councillor Davidson, I hope you're still with us, because I can't see on the screen. I think we've lost Councillor Davidson.
Yeah, I think she keeps losing some connection, doesn't she? So.
Okay, I know. Not sure she's got Wi-Fi, strong Wi-Fi signal at home. Can I ask everyone to stay connected? Can I thank the Commissioner? There's an issue in here. So many unanswered questions. I know that's not your fault. It's time. It's virtual meetings. It's a lot of things stacked against us. The only thing I would, just to be courteous to Mr. Chris Lee, who had a public question at the beginning of this meeting around hunting and the amount of time spent discussing it, I will get the officers to pass that question across to your office and reassure Mr. Chris Lee that we haven't forgotten him. because he asked us to raise it with you in the scrutiny session. So I'm sure he'll watch this. I just need him to know that we'll close it off and your office will respond to his question, which will be on the video. All right, everyone happy with that? Stay connected. We'll get back together at 1:10 okay? And thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, members. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll have a Pepsi, please, mate. Ooh. Yeah, you got me before. I was just about to give you a ring. Yeah, I was just about to. I thought exactly the same.
Chair, I don't know if you've seen a few messages on screen, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Brian.
Yeah, 2 or 3 people, including myself, need to leave on or about past because we've got other meeting commitments. Mine's external.
I have. I've just come off the phone from Martin, and we've been discussing just that as well. So.
Oh, right.
I have work to go to myself. There's a few of us, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I've been given a slight reprieve, but only probably about quarters to.
Chairman, are we resuming the meeting? Are you?
Yeah. Are we all here? Have we got sufficient? We quorate?
We're quorate, yes, Chairman.
Okay, so I'll invite. We're taking the item approved procedural rules on the creation of new complaints procedure through what was the existing complaints subgroup. Martin, over to you.
Chairman, thank you. I'll be very, very brief, just conscious of time. This is item 6, pages 25 to 36, and the paperwork which you have with you today follows on from the recent meeting of the complaints subcommittee, which was held 2 or 3 weeks ago, which considered in significant detail both the proposed terms of reference for a new subcommittee and also the details of a new complaints procedure. The recommendations that came out of that subcommittee, and there were a significant number of detailed changes that were proposed. They have been incorporated into the draft which you have in front of you today. That's all I want to say. I don't know if the chair of the subcommittee, Councillor Dawson, would wish to say anything.
Dawson.
Thank you. I've got to say thank you to everybody who was involved in producing these draft rules. This goes for both officers, members, colleagues, everything else. A lot of effort's gone into it. I think a lot of debate also went into it, and I think we've produced something which we can all be rightly proud of. It is a Cheshire solution, and I would like to think this will become the exemplar for others to follow going forward. So I will happily answer any questions in relation to it, but I think it's an excellent piece of work and I commend it to you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dawson. I have to say, because of my role as Vice Chairman of National Association Police, Fire and Crime Panels, we did trawl everything that was out there. And I think, to be fair with Councillor Dawson, he put considerable work into it on top of the officers, and you know we did have a huge debate and a lot was extracted, and it very much was a collective cross-party, if you like, and independence finished item. So I'm certainly very pleased with it. I know the National Association are very pleased with it, and we're developing a best practice portal, and I know this is going to be in there. On that, I'll take questions from any of the other members or comments on the procedure. My goodness, I was expecting. We want everyone out. Are we moving to the recommendations? Does anyone have any?
Chairman, Councillor King has her hand up.
Councillor King has a question. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Thanks, Evan. It looks like a really good piece of work, so well done, everyone. I had a really good read of it. I had just 2 questions on it. One, I think it excludes a monitoring officer validation prior to complaints, which I'd probably suggest you put back in. And the proportionality looks great on it as well. So it definitely improves the current situation and moves you into, I know as a valid point, I have researched other Peace Crime Commissioner panels approaches to this to make sure we are definitely and I'm glad to hear you've done that as well, Alvin. But yeah, not having a monitoring officer check or validate queries before they hit the panel. I think as I read it, and you can correct me if I've got it wrong, it looks like that's not in this proposal. Could it be put back in? Would be my only thing. Otherwise, it's great.
Yeah, I think having been involved in the evolution of it, Amanda, there are some reasons for that, which I'll put it across to Martin and then Andrew if they wish to respond to that.
Chairman, thank you. I mean, obviously the procedure which you have in front of you today actually does have a far greater involvement by members of the panel than the current procedure, and that was very much the steer which the panel gave some considerable time ago, and that also was the steer that was given by the complaints subcommittee at its meeting in I think it was in March, just before lockdown, and that was very much the steer that was provided at the meeting a couple of weeks ago. I think what underpins the terms of reference for the subcommittee and the procedure is that members of the subcommittee and of the panel will have access to advice from the Secretariat and from the Host Authorities Monitoring Officer. And if you turn to page 30, subparagraph 11, it does say the subcommittee will be advised by the panel Secretariat and the Host Authorities Monitoring Officer. So that actually underpins all stages of the procedure. What the procedure doesn't do, and this is probably the most significant change from the current procedure, is actually rest with the monitoring officer that initial analysis, that initial review of the complaint that's come in. In this procedure, that role will be done by the chair and deputy chair of the proposed subcommittee, or was advised as necessary by the Host Authorities Monitoring Officer.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's how I read it, is that you're going to receive complaints and they're not filtered before they get to you as a chair or vice chair of that group, which is probably going to cause extra workload. I think there's not been many complaints over the last couple of years, which is great to hear, but you never know when you get a spike. And if you're not a monitoring officer today and you have a different role as a councillor in whatever role you take, and whatever role you take as the chair or vice chair of this subcommittee, you may not have, you can take guidance from the monitoring officer, but if you suddenly have an influx and it's not being filtered in some way, it could cause immense amount of workload. That's what and concern, because you're not a legal person looking at that in your own entirety. So anyone could be the vice chair from this panel. That was my concern. I just think if you put that layer in there, you'd also protect the subcommittee from a tirade of complaints, if there ever was going to be any. At the moment, there hasn't been. There's only been 2, so you're probably not going to get many. But if you don't have the mechanism there, Evan, you're never to protect your chair and vice chair of the committee as a result of that. That was all my concern. It was just to make sure that team didn't get started getting, spurious emails and not being checked by a monitoring officer before they even got them, and then that would lead you to a GDPR issue as well. So I just thought, I know you, sorry, forgive me for putting something on such hard work, and I recognise this is a great piece of work. There's just a little tiny piece that seems to be missing.
Yeah, I'm conscious that throughout the development of that work, we have had, Brian Reid, who's a qualified lawyer, and indeed Andrew, who's qualified legally. So I think we've had good advice, and I don't pretend to be an expert at this, and you've most probably got far more knowledge about it than I. But I know Councillor Dawson would wish to speak.
Sure, thank you. We are also reacting to experience, Amanda, in the sense of when we did have the complaints process was undertaken in the past, there wasn't ownership of it by the panel or panel members, and by having the chair and deputy chair as very much taking the lead, we make sure that the complaint system is member led, and that members are actually responsible directly to the police and crime panel for the way in which the system operates. As Martin already says, of course, the chair and deputy chair will be advised by the monitoring officer as needs be. But the key thing, we wanted something that was evidently member-led. I mean, if God forbid we end up with an explosion of complaints and all the issues that you rightly identify arise, then no doubt we'll be running straight back and say, oh, we need an amendment to it. But on the basis that we don't appear to be having that number of complaints coming forward, this appears to be the way in making sure that members stay in charge of the process. And that was very much the steer that we gave to officers when this process was kicked off.
Councillor King.
Yeah, it looks like a great process, Andrew. I think it's very valid to put a more comprehensive process in place. I just think, and the logic says protect the team before because you get, we're public, it's a public facing entity, and I wouldn't deal with anything at council level or any other committee level without it first going through a formal legal process before it got to us. I would, I'm not saying don't do what you're doing, I think it's great. I just think if that would go back in, and it's not something you look at retrospectively once you get a trend of complaints, if that was ever the case. And, we've had a couple of spikes over the years at when issues have risen because of, one issue or another. But the last 2 years have been too quick. So I do get that, but don't chase the protection after something happens. You do it in advance of something that potentially could happen because you have seen spikes before. I would just say put the protection in, and that's up to the panel. It's not up to me individually.
I mean,
it's up to you, the panel. I would say put a filter back in that allows the chair and vice chair to receive only complaints that are actually valid, and then that whole sub team can look at it in its entirety and give that the quality time it would rightly require to look at it. I get it. Okay. Thanks. Sorry, Ivan. I know time.
Say, because I was involved with the subgroup, with the development of the policy, and we did have in excess of 10 alleged complaints against the commissioner. Now, developing the policy, and all of those had more or less gone straight into legal officers for advice on, and there was varying advice as to what was and wasn't a complaint. So part of the terms of reference to this group was to be very, very clear on making sure and transparent to members of the public. And indeed, it filtered out immediately, this process, a lot of what could be deemed vexatious complaints or operational policing issues where we really couldn't get that advice off legal officers. So the whole procedure and process will filter a lot of that out. Rest assured, the members will go straight to legal advice, and we've got one point of contact now, and that will be in the very early stages. So I personally don't see a problem with it. I'd welcome comments from any of the other members, but if there are none, I'd move to the recommendations.
I've got.
Yeah, first of all, Deputy Chair Dave, please.
Let me take my hand down first because I keep forgetting that. Within the recommendations, and I joined this meeting that discussed this, and there were some things in areas that I certainly wasn't happy with, and we discussed it, and I think cross-party there was agreement that it needed to change. So it was a changed version that you've got. But one of the things we discussed when we had the complaint subcommittee meeting was the composition in terms of, it has to be proportionate, we know that, but the actual numbers, there's a recommendation that I suggest that it is 7, because one of the experiences we very often have is members can't always make it. And if it's 7, it does create quite a fair balance across the panel. We know that we've got an independent councillor and things like that. That it allows us to cover the entire political. I won't say political allegiance, but the various views and proportions of the panel. The one area where I think we will disagree, and I'm judging that on some of the things I know Councillor Dawson said before. And that is the issue of all complaints. And in fact, we had it earlier at this meeting. When a policy takes effect, it takes effect. And I am very much of the view you can't then go back and retrospectively look to the past at complaints. So that might be the only area where I think we predominantly might disagree on. But by and large, this work's been long overdue. There hasn't been a massive complaints. There's been a couple once they've been looked at, but at least there's some system there for doing that. The other thing which I think's very much of interest, where I think when we do get complaints, some members of the panel may have some differing views, is on what is a complaint against the commissioner. I was reading the Merseyside police and complaints, so the Merseyside panel's papers the other day around complaints, and it was very clear. It had to be in the whole about the commission and the commissioner's actions. We've seen complaints that we've even heard at this meeting where it's about the commissioner's staff, and it should be for the chief executive of the commissioner's staff to deal with that. If it's about the chief executive of the commissioner's office, it's for the commissioner to deal with that. But we're not here to judge the individual actions of PCSOs or police officers. So those are probably the only two areas where I think when time comes, we may have some. We may even come back to revise this, because like a lot of policies, you've got to implement them and see how it beds in, and maybe in the future we tweak it. But I think this is excellent. We've got something now. I think it should be 7 members of the panel, and we just need to elect a chair and a vice chair for that body, really.
Okay. Anyone else wish to comment?
Councillor Delaney and Councillor Dawson.
Councillor Delaney. Councillor Dawson doesn't want to speak. It's all right.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'll just lower my hand as well. Yes, I support what Councillor King is saying. I think the filter level of the monitoring officer still needs to be in there, and the suggestion that with it, it wouldn't be member led, I think is false. It would still be member led. I think Councillor Thompson was just saying, what constitutes a complaint against the actual commissioner. So with that level of scrutiny, should we say, that filter level of the monitoring officer, I think that would support it does what it says, doesn't it? It filters the complaints coming through so that we're not there judging what is and what isn't a complaint against the commissioner.
Anyone have anything to comment in response to Councillor Delaney? Councillor Dawson.
Thank you. I do disagree over this particular point. It is something that we debated long and hard. I see no reason to depart from the standard position, which is officers advise, members decide in relation to these sorts of things. It's not like the monitoring officer won't be involved. He or she will be intimately involved in providing advice as to whether or not the matter falls within the remit as required. But the real issue is, if you think back to some of our experiences as a panel with regards to the complaints, we have had a problem, and I don't wish to be rude to any officers that's been involved in relation to it, but we've had profound problems in actually getting a handle on what's going on and what decisions have been made. And because of that historic difficulty that we've had, even down to things like the register of the complaints, we could not distinguish between particular complaints that had been made because insufficient information had been properly retained. It's because of that poor experience in particular that I'm actually very strong in relation to this, that we need to have members who are accountable directly to the police and crime panel to make sure that the system works properly. And as I say, it isn't to exclude the monitoring officer. The monitoring officer's advice will be greatly in need, and no doubt will be followed in 99.9% of matters. But the key thing is, we've seen a system where officers have run it, didn't hit the mark as far as we were concerned. And this is why, overall, I'm very much conscious that that members should be taking the key decisions and not officers. But it's not to exclude their advice. It's to actually say we'll listen to the advice, and then the chair, in this particular case, chair and deputy chair, make the response. And of course, by the way the numbers are going to stack up, that's not going to be political. The chair and deputy chair working together will come from different groups, different organisations.
Councillor King.
Yeah, I think Andrew, probably slightly unfair to call out a member of the monitoring officer or anyone to suggest in any way that they wouldn't be the most professional approach in what they take. I think that we need to retract that, really. I do trust monitoring officers at councils. I think it's really important to do so. And actually, they come with a level of expertise that some of us may or may not have ourselves in a legal background. I think maybe I have heard they might be slightly overworked in some capacity. Maybe that's a thing, I get that. But to take them out and to have them in is still member led. because to suggest that a monitoring officer would remove a complaint that didn't first get discussed with a member or even brought to our attention in some capacity or even the chair's capacity, it is insinuating that the monitoring officer wasn't doing their job, which I would never dream of talking about in that way. So I think you might want to retract that. I think just having it in there as a layer of protection and still member-led is a great sub-team. I think this is a much longer conversation. To not have it in there just means we have no protection. To go to them after the event, Andrew, is retrospect, and again could cause anyone who's the chair or vice chair of this subcommittee major issues. Please protect yourself. That's all I'm asking, and I don't understand why it's not up at the front end. You still haven't convinced me why it shouldn't be there, other than you may not have had a great monitoring officer before, which I should imagine is not the case. Anyway, that's my 2 pennies worth. It's up to anyone on the panel to make the decision on this. I'd suggest you pause on this and come back to it. You've only got a couple of months to do this, and maybe the November meeting, and do it that way, because we are running out of time. But be careful to get it absolutely bang on, because you've come so far and done a great job.
Thank you, Councillor King. I appreciate your. And there's mixed feeling on this, and we could get into a scrap and go on for ages. I'll take the view, but I would move to recommendation 1, which I would propose we accept, and after a seconder.
Well, I'm happy to move it, and I do want to answer Councillor King. I appreciate the force of the remarks that she makes. All of my remarks were made on evidence and are properly justified, and I stand by them. And those of us who were engaged in the work and looked at the work that had gone on before were also profoundly of the view that it needed to be member-led. I've said what I've said because of the evidence we've had.
Okay, so I take it you seconded the recommendation 1, Councillor Dawson. Okay, can we, I know a lot of people have dropped out of this meeting, can we move to a vote? And I'll do it in the same way.
Chairman, do we have a seconder? Sorry.
Sorry, I proposed it, Andrew seconded it.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Yeah. We'll do it by authority as we did before. Having said that, a number of members have dropped out. I'm aware of that. Councillor King. You're muted.
I'm against based on the fact it doesn't have a monitoring officer at the front end, but great work, but I'm against at this point.
I appreciate your commendation of the work. Thank you. I don't think Councillor Davidson's with us, is she now? Councillor Finlow. I'm not seeing Councillor Finlow on the list. I'm not seeing Councillor Judah either. Councillor Warren. Are we still quorum, Martin?
Yes, we are.
Councillor Delaney.
Against, Chair. I mean, I'd like to see that level of the monitoring officer put back in.
Okay, Councillor Bissett.
Bissett's not here either.
With us. Councillor Dawson.
For
Councillor Thompson.
Well, I've got to say, I'm starting to think we're dropping like flies, and I've got to go work as well. There's a little bit of me says, deal with this as the first item at the next meeting, but I will understand if you want to push on. It would probably be amiss of me to vote against something that when I was on the group, but the actual sentiment of the role of the monitoring officer is an interesting one. It is actually an important one, and I must say I hadn't realised the extent to which the monitoring officer isn't there, and I'll tell you for why. When you read our terms of reference, as you know, because I pointed it out a while ago, it is littered with mention of the monitoring officer. We are, as things stand, we are a constituent body of Cheshire East Council. And because we are a constituent body of Cheshire East Council, who control the grant and the purse strings and everything else, and are the host authority, because of that, it's very difficult to avoid the monitoring officer. So I can understand where Councillor King's coming from. The one thing I would say, so in terms of a vote, I'm happy to support this, but I have to tell you, like all policies and practices are subject to review. And I think by the time of our AGM, we may need to revisit this issue.
Okay, so
that's a long-winded yes.
Yes, a long-winded yes. Thank you. Councillor Plumpton-Walsh.
I'm not Dave's vice chair on Safe Halton for nothing. I totally agree with what he's just said. That monitoring officer, as a check and balance, does need to be in there for me as well. So I'm not quite convoluted, yes, but yes to the proposals in general, but I want to see those safeguards in there.
Can I just confirm for the record that is a vote in favour of the
recommendation one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mrs. Hardwick, Sally. Sally, you with us? You're muted.
I'm with you. I just actually think that paragraph 6, the chair and deputy chair of the subcommittee advised as necessary by the host authorities monitoring. It just needs to be amended to say in conjunction with the host will determine whether a complaint can be considered. I mean, I just think that we're basically tying ourselves in knots here over something which is really, it's done in practice. Just incorporate it.
Chairman, this Chairman, just in terms of procedure, this is a vote at the moment. Cannot move amendments.
You're right. It's a vote, but I have to say, I'd vote for you, Sally. She's just cut through this whole debate there with that. It's a slight. We're going over what it should be the slightest of word changes. In all honesty. Perhaps the mover and seconder might want to just at this point contemplate what Sally has said, withdraw and just make that tweak, and then we're all happy, I would hope.
Chairman, if I may, it might be something which our actually monitoring officer who's with us today might wish to advise on, in so much as I think there are resource implications in the way this procedure operates. And I think it might just be a little bit more than just making an amendment to the procedure, because there are time constraints which are built into that procedure, which might not be deliverable if there's another process added to it.
Okay, are you suggesting Brian, who I can see still with us, will say a few words on it, or do we proceed and take?
I don't think Brian is with us. I was wondering if Deborah would
yes.
want. Brian is there. Sorry.
Brian is here, but don't forget, as I've said, all work of the panel, everything is that there should be, and there is to a large extent, overview of the backdrop of the monitoring officer. You know.
Okay, Deborah.
Yes, hello, thank you, Chair. I am quite content, having been involved in the formative stages of this, that the monitoring officer's advice is implicit already in what's drafted. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. And Martin points out resource implications. That was certainly not a driver for the discussions, although inevitably there are resource implications in all aspects of local government work. But it's a matter for the panel to decide. But I'm quite content that the role of the monitoring officer is securely there and available to the subcommittee at the stage, including at the stage of filtering, which I absolutely concur with the importance of that stage. The number of complaints in the past has been fairly minimal, so that's hopefully not a great use of resources. And I think that at a time when I certainly have not had involvement in this, but I think that there's been issues that have caused this change of procedure for panel members to feel that it was necessary. But I'm quite content in the legal context to say that the involvement of the monitoring officer is absolutely securely there already.
Chair, may I come in, please?
Yeah.
Sorry to interject there, and thanks to Deb for her advice. I think from a procedural perspective, I think Councillor Dawson will possibly agree what I'm about to say, which is it has been proposed and seconded that paragraph 2.1 Roman 1 be accepted. The vote has been commenced, and I think from a procedural perspective, I've got to advise you that we can't amend something halfway through in my view. So the monitoring officer, the deputy monitoring officer, has given you assurances about the level of involvement of the monitoring officer in the process to come. We've also heard that the issue can be looked at carefully in future and tweaked if necessary. So, Chair, I don't know if that gives you sufficient reassurance to continue. And I must offer my apologies because I'm doing another meeting in about 10 minutes, Chair.
Grateful for you hanging back on your advice, Debbie and Brian.
Chair, can I just tell you, Brian is correct, but when you're halfway through a vote, you can't just change things around. But at any point in the middle of a vote, a mover and seconder can say, I withdraw it. The point Sally made was about tweaking wording. I'm not going to disagree with what Deborah has said here.
Councillor Thompson, you've muted yourself.
When I heard what Sally had to say, I just thought it was perfectly reasonable, but I'll leave it for you to decide.
Thank you, Dave. I also hear what you said about before, if over the next AGM, 6 months or so, this doesn't work well for us, and I perhaps think it will, we have the opportunity to amend it and take on board Sally's review, which I agree with you, seemed to cut through it all. Now, I think where we need to go to is to take Sally's vote, because we haven't had it yet. I think you muted, Sally.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. I'm sorry, can somebody refresh me as to what the original motion was? Because I'm completely lost now.
Yeah, it's recommendation, the Roman 1, appoint a new complaints management subcommittee with the powers and terms of reference detailed in Appendix 1. So essentially it's signing off the procedure.
Agree.
Agree.
Sorry, Chairman, just for clarity, are the panel suggesting an amendment to any wording in Appendix 1? If it is...
No, it's what Brian said. We've not gone back. The proposer and seconder haven't withdrawn the proposal, and we've taken a vote on item 1.
Okay, so Sally is in favour. Thank you.
Okay.
It's carried. So
thank you. I just wanted clarification on that. So if you go to item 2, determine the number of members.
Don't I get a vote?
Bob, I didn't think you were with us. I've lost you. I didn't see you. Apologies, because I'm not getting you on my... Bob, thank you. Can you give your vote, please?
Given what Deborah's just said, I vote in favour.
Thank you. You popped up on the bottom of my screen now, Bob, as your good lady. Thank you. Okay, that's carried. So if you go to item 2, if I propose that, I was partway through it, determine the number of members on the corporate management subcommittee. I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I think overall the panel's agreed 7 members proportionally.
Yeah, I've already mentioned 7, Chair. I move 7. It gives a wide scope of people to participate, and if there's absence, it covers for absence.
Second that.
And
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Move to the vote. Councillor King.
Oh, agreed.
Councillor Finlow's not with us, is he? No. Laura Judah's not with us. Mick Warren's not with us. Councillor Delaney.
Agreed.
Councillor Bissett's not with us. Councillor Dawson.
Reluctantly, I'll agree. I would have preferred a smaller panel, but I'm not going to break unanimity.
Okay, appreciate that. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, 4.
Not 4 members. Vote.
Oh, sorry, not 4. No, I've moved 7.
Yeah, I know. Councillor Norman Plumpton Walsh.
I seconded it, so yeah, I'm for.
Yeah, thank you. And Mr. Fusar. Are you with us, Bob? I've got you on.
Sorry, I apologise. I'd muted and gone back. No, I don't agree. I'd look at 5 members. I think we have no problems getting panel members together. Getting 7, I think, might make it difficult to compile some or convene some of these panels.
So your votes against. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Hardwick, Sally.
Agreed.
Okay. Item 3, Martin.
Chairman, that has been carried. 7 members.
Sorry, beg your pardon. Move to item. We haven't. Yeah, item 4. Beg your pardon. Appoint chair and deputy chair complaints management subgroup. Do I have any nominations for chair? Councillor King.
I think it's only fair. I'd nominate Sally.
Okay, for a seconder for Sally.
I'd second that.
Can I just check first? Is she happy to accept that nomination first of all?
Yeah, sorry, Sally. Of course, sorry, I meant to ask you.
Yeah, I'm happy to accept the nomination.
Sound enthusiastic, Sally, please.
Red isn't there.
So Sally's background will make an excellent chair.
Sally, if you don't accept, it might be your dog being nominated next.
He's fast asleep, so I wouldn't really worry, just quite frankly.
Can I move to a nomination of...
Sorry, can I just check who seconded that?
It was Councillor Plumpton Walsh.
I did.
Thank you.
Can I move to a proposal for deputy chair?
I'd propose Martin Delaney.
I'll second that.
Just need to check whether Martin would be happy to act as deputy chair of the complaints. You're just on mute, Martin. I'm guessing you're agreeing. Thank you, God. Okay, I'll move to a vote on item 4. I think I'm pretty sure who's not here, so I'll move through those who are here. Councillor King?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Delaney?
Yes.
Councillor Dawson?
Agreed.
Councillor Thompson?
Sorry, Chair, is this a vote for both chair and vice chair?
It is, yeah. Do we need to take...
Yeah.
All right, both of them rather than you're not doing chair then vice chair. Okay, yeah, agreed.
Well, I thought if we took the 2 proposals and everyone agreed, then
that's fine. I just wanted to be clear on what I'm voting for. That was all.
yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah. Perhaps I'm being a bit unorthodox, but that's the way of logic I saw. If the officers are happy with that, Councillor Plumpton Walsh.
I accept. Yep, both.
Councillor Fusar.
Councillor, please.
Sorry.
Yes. No, I agree. Thanks, Evan.
I've demoted you, Bob. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I agree.
This is hard, Sally. I think you muted Sally.
Yeah.
Was that a yes?
Yes, agreed. That's my dog. No, he's... Yeah.
Oh.
Right, I'm advised by the officers items 5, 6, 7 and 8. Item 8 being the abolishment of the existing subgroup that has developed this procedure can be taken as one vote. Is that correct?
Chairman, yes, I think they can, but just before you move on, Roman 3 was to appoint new members to the subcommittee. You've appointed the chair and deputy chair, but there still remains another 5 members to appoint. could I perhaps suggest, with the limited numbers of members actually able to have stayed at the moment, I wonder if that is something which is dealt with out of the meeting with your agreement.
That was going to be the point I made before, that we're going to struggle with the members that are in today to establish 7 members, and we'll have to appoint them outside of this meeting.
But Chair, wouldn't it be quite the irony if those who are outside the meeting now were the ones who are appointed?
Would it help to take registration of interest from within the group that is here at the moment, or not? Who would sit on the complaint subgroup out of this existing, and then seek the remainder?
There's a little bit me says just defer this, and you know, I mean, if because it's got to be proportionate, you know what it's got to be. I mean, I think out of that there's one Conservative, so between them, Andrew and Paul are going to decide who that is, aren't they? You know, so I just let that happen away from the meeting and just advise the chair, and then the chair can advise the officers. Yeah,
are we happy with that? So if we accept recommendation 5 through to 8, we take a vote on it. Can we move through the list? Councillor King.
Agreed.
Councillor Delaney.
Yeah, agree.
Councillor Dawson.
Agreed.
Councillor Thompson.
Agreed.
Councillor Plumpton Walsh.
At this particular juncture, I've got to leave, but yes, I do agree.
Timing to perfection. And Councillor, sorry, Mr. Fusar.
Where'd you get this councillor from? Yes, I agree.
Great. And Mrs. Hardwick-Selly.
Agreed.
Great, thank you.
Can I give my apologies too? I've got to go. I've got to get to Birkenhead for a meeting. So thank you all, and see you next time.
And I'm not far behind Andrew in having to leave as well. So,
Chairman, could I suggest that perhaps at the end of this item the meeting is adjourned, because I think there's a very real danger of the meeting not becoming quorate.
Yeah. So how will we pick up on the rest of this business, Martin? I mean,
well, Chairman, if you look at the agenda which you have, I think there's nothing that probably can't wait until the next meeting.
No. No. Okay, we will adjourn the meeting. Can I just thank everyone? It's been a bit tortuous. It was a massive agenda. There were some complex issues on it. Can I thank everyone for their patience and contribution, which has been excellent, including the Commissioner who's not with us at the moment. But I've got 4 hours, 7 minutes. Everyone deserves a reprieve. And thank you, Councillor King, for deputising, and our best wishes to Councillor Marr.
Can I just ask, Chair, before you close the meeting, because we've just gone from one subcommittee to the other, it would be amiss of us just not to say, just thank Councillor Dawson for the work that he did do, because I know he did put some time into this, and you're very consciously aware of that, and I know Martin is. So thanks to him.
Yeah.
He's not going to get any medals because he's got enough.
No, he's got enough at the back. Yeah.
I really appreciate that cross-party support for an excellent piece of work, which and I know Councillor Dawson did involve himself in it. So yeah, it goes without saying thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, thank you. Bye.